We are now honoured to invite the representative from the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam and Singapore, Dr. Richard Marshall, Senior Economist and representing the Acting UN Resident Coordinator of the UN Resident Coordinator Office to deliver the opening remarks. Let's welcome Dr. Richard Marshall.
Yeah, it's perfect, thanks. So, Dato Sri Mustafa Mohammed, advisor to the APPGM and former Minister of Economy, Ms. Nita Ahmed, CEO of the MySDG Foundation, other speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It's a pleasure to speak to you this morning on behalf of the United Nations country team in Malaysia, and specifically to make clear the importance the UN places on grassroots actions and advocacy in delivering on the Sustainable Development Agenda. And this is a message the UN has long championed under the banner of the whole of society approach to delivering the SDGs. And of course, last year at the Summit for the Future, the Pact for the Future was adopted, which restates this, emphasizing grassroots participation is crucial and focusing on empowering communities, especially youth, and enabling step changes in SDG delivery. I want to emphasize this is meant not only in terms of a diverse group of actors, from civil society, government, and from business, but crucially also in targeting initiatives that favor the local level. And this, because this is precisely where tangible and lasting change is secured. So this morning I want to convey three sets of topic relevant messages. The first is about the absolutely challenging position we face on SDG progress, and therefore that this necessitates redoubled efforts at the grassroots level. Second, I have some observations on channels for effective grassroots action. I see already that these are taking place in Malaysia. And third, just offer some thoughts on how the UN can support and facilitate these efforts. So I begin with the absolute imperative of stepping up efforts and inputs, especially at the grassroots, to kickstart SDG progress. So we are barely 5 years to go before 2030, and yet the latest performance data for the SDGs, both globally and nationally, shows that we're still far from where we need to be. The UN's Global Barometer, published this July, shows that merely 18% of the 169 SDG targets remain on track for achievement by 2030. And while a further 17% show some limited progress, a very striking 31% show only marginal improvements, and even more troublingly, 35% are either stagnant or regressing. Progress is especially troubling on SDG 1, the eradication of poverty, SDG 5, gender equality and women's empowerment, SDG 6, clean water, and SDG 16, peace, justice and strong institutions. And while considerably better, the data for Malaysia provided by the National SDG Centre also gives some cause for concern. While positively the Centre reports that 49% of targets are now on track, troublingly 34% are still off track and set not to be achieved, and 17% lack adequate data, making it impossible to make a judgment either way. The Centre goes on to highlight 10 key SDG issues, and these include slow SDG progress in lagging states, nutritional weaknesses, poor mental health outcomes, violent crime, and the difficult plight faced by people with disabilities, among other issues. In turn, they propose the prioritization of SDG 2 on food and nutrition, SDG 3 on health and well-being, SDG 4 on quality education, SDG 9 on industry and innovation, SDG 10 on inequality, and additionally SDG 16 on justice and institutions. And these are clearly all areas which lend themselves to effective grassroots action. So persisting SDG gaps at home and abroad speak to the need for urgent and bold actions. And so second, I want to highlight the channels through which civil society organizations working at the grassroots can contribute decisively to SDG progress. And I also want to underline, of course, these contributions taking place at the local and community level have an impact often well beyond what is commonly assumed. So the first channel, I would say, is really the direct delivery of SDG solutions by CSOs through organizing to plug gaps in public provision, providing services to meet basic needs, and coordinating and sharing information and promoting behavioral changes. These concrete coalface efforts typically span several SDGs, ranging from alleviating poverty and improving nutrition to addressing severe local environmental damage, including adapting to climate change. Of course, these projects also have spillover and dynamic qualities, spurring multiplier effects that work across the SDGs in multiple localities, and by empowering those groups to help, that are left behind to help themselves. So the second channel is what I refer to as one of representation and advocacy. Grassroots initiatives offer powerful tools for articulating the views and voices of communities, especially those who are often unheard within official policy circles. Significantly also, they offer a real political resource, enabling connections to be drawn between disparate groups, delivering supportive coalitions, and fostering alliances with other actors, and I include within that the UN and its agencies. These have the power to bring about genuine and lasting, favorable administrative and legislative change. The third channel, which is somewhat, I admit, is somewhat allied to the second, is the role the grassroots can play in providing grounded contributions to the monitoring and evaluation of SDG progress. By adding qualitative evidence on the real-life experiences to traditional aggregate metrics, alongside the generation of novel sources of new data, in essence, citizen-generated data, assessments can offer a fuller and more solution-orientated account of progress. In turn, this helps deliver improved policymaker understandings and better honed solutions and decisions. And I'm very encouraged to see, just looking around today, that these figures very strongly in your agenda. So before I close, I also want to say something about how the UN country team here in Malaysia has and will continue to support and enable effective grassroots contributions. I highlight two specific dimensions of our work. So the first is affording the grassroots a voice within various UN-facilitated SDG processes, and the primary ones being the voluntary national review of SDG progress, which, as you know, Malaysia participated in this year, and we will hear more about that during the sessions today. The second is the Universal Periodic Review of Human Rights that takes place every 4 to 5 years, with the latest round being conducted in early 2024. So the UNCT has strived both in these processes to provide channels for consultation and inputs by the use of a diverse set of authors and researchers, and by using inclusive assessment methods, by outreach and the use of innovative platforms, including connections with CSOs working at the grassroots. And this is particularly important in capturing the views and voices of marginalized and vulnerable people. And I want to emphasize that the VNR and the UPR, while they produce substantive documents, their preparation and their consultative process are as important as the eventual outcome statements that are provided. Indeed, as such, they provide an outlet for the expression of diverse views, and therefore they also deliver a form of grassroots accountability. The second area of UN action concerns the enabling and resourcing of grassroots actions, and here I emphasize the growing practice of UN agencies either in contracting with or working in partnership with CSOs working at the coalface. Equally critical is direct financial support, and a further conduit is the Malaysia UN SDG Trust Fund, which has awarded some $5.4 million to over 20 CSO projects over 2 successive rounds of applications. These projects seek to deliver tangible SDG impacts across Malaysia, invariably working at the local community level. And I recognize the strong contribution of the MySDG Foundation as our key partner, and I look forward to hearing from our counterpart, Ms. Anita Ahmed, on this, on the wider support that they deliver. So Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I draw my remarks to a close there. I thank you for your attention. I wish you well with today's session. And I reiterate the UN country team's commitment to support grassroots organizations in their actions to deliver the SDGs here in Malaysia and the world over. Thank you.